The crocuses were in bloom. A grey sky, that grey that suggests rain and softened weather. The storms of winter are almost now the first spring rain. A bird was singing in a tree still bare, yet the song was calling a mate or singing that she had one. In the single note they repeated there was spring blossom and summer sun and hatched eggs. The ground was cold mud and bareness, yet from the mud with the snows melting fresh on it, the crocuses were in bloom, purple and white and yellow, and beneath the ground the world was waking to burst up green. And the bird flew low and brown with twigs in her beak to build her nest. But the air was far colder than Candace had expected, biting at her face and hands, stinging her throat as she sucked it down into her lungs. Stepping out of the door with her coat loose and unfastened, her face turned bright to the sky. The cold made her gasp. Pleasant, refreshing, the taste, the feel of the winter cold in her mouth stepping out from hearth smoke. That was a thing she loved. But the smell of the air, the light that streamed in pale through the hall's high windows, they had made her think of warm days and warm, sweet flower air, and she had relaxed herself for the warmth on her face. Almost unbalanced, walking in the biting cold, feeling, knowing that it was spring. The birds there singing, even if the trees were bare, knew it was spring, and the crocuses she waded through knew. Winter is not a good time for fighting, and not a good time for burying the dead. The earth is too cold in winter to bury the dead. Spring is the fitted time for these things. From the slopes of the mountains before her on the far horizon, smoke was rising. The wind blew the wrong way for her to smell it. Thin columns, many columns. Candace put her hand on the hilt of her sword. More smoke rising on the horizon that would soon rise from the slopes of the mountains where she stood. "Oh, it's cold!" The voice made her almost jump. She turned, laughed. "If you insist on going out in your shirt, Gavin. Look, you can see my breath." He huffed out into the grey air. "No, you can't. No, you can't. Bah." He puffed out his cheeks, blew out like blowing a war horn. "It should be cold enough for that." Candace looked at him. "Have you even been to sleep? That's for when after all this, when the excitement's died down. We fight, we celebrate, then we sleep." "Gavin, we haven't started fighting yet. This is the boring bit. We celebrate, we fight, we celebrate again, then we sleep. Bah, it really should be cold enough to see my breath." Gavin. His face was such a boy's face. So young. Celebrating for him almost meant cakes and games and running about. Candace thought, looking at him, why could our Lord not have made me as young as that? Her hair was red as fire, her skin was brown as earth, her eyes were blue as sweet deep water, on her brow she wore a circlet of bronze. Out of good sown earth and wildflower and red autumn berries, the Lord of Rovin had shaped her. But he had not, in his great wisdom, made her beautiful and young. Gavin, great leap, silver trout and green willow leaves, golden sand on summer beaches, the babble of a snow-melt river, dragonflies and a buzz of rainbowed wings. His helmet had a young stallion rearing in the dance as its crest. "Go inside and put your coat on before you catch a cold and miss the battle entirely," Candace said. "A cold! A mere cold! Keep me, Lord Gallen of the Six Swords of Rovin, from fighting." "Yes, but..." "Go inside and put on your cloak on before you catch a cold and have to ride into battle with a sore, snot-crusted nose beneath your helmet." Laughter. "That might bother Moran, but not me. However, it is far too cold without a cloak, yes." If it was Moran, Candace thought, she would say now, have you been drinking before going into battle? And fret over him. But Gavin skipped off back into the hall, only young and foolish, and in such high, thoughtless good spirits. He shouted from inside the hall, and sneezed so hard I almost fall off my horse mid-sword thrust. Spray snot all over the enemy, even as I cut off his head. Get on with you, Galan. Oh, he was by far the best of them. A trumpet rang from behind the wall, a long, mournful note. Galan said, "Oh." He came back out, cloaked now and shining white. His face was grave now, a boy's face, shocked by war and death. Kanda thought, our Lord of Rovin in his wisdom made him young and innocent. Thus every time the battle ends and the dead are gathered, the cost of war comes new to him. Poor, sweet Galan. A bowshot's distance, perhaps, or a little more, or as far, perhaps, as a man could run and not be winded, or as a horse could run for the sheer pleasure of its running, or as far as Galan could leap. Up to the crest of the hill on which the King's Hall was built, down the other side 100, 200, 300 steps. There, in the lee of the King's Hall, a pool lay very clear, perfectly round and black, like the eye of a prize milk cow, fringed in dark rushes. In the middle of the pool was a black rock. On the rock was a pyre, birchwood that seemed to be not wood but white bleached bone against the black water and the white black rock. On the pyre, quiet, almost sleeping, was a body wrapped in a fine red cloak. The King's Hall, the King's Hill, the King's Pool in which the King must bathe on his crowning. The King's Cloak, the King's Son. The horn blew its one terrible note, comfortless, pitiless in its grief as the scream of a gull or a hawk. In answer, pitiless and comfortless also, the women raised the lament. Mare, mare, Henket. How young he was, how splendid, so beautiful he was, and fierce and strong. Night has covered his eyes. There is no joy in his face. His arms are as stones in the empty field. His eyes are as stones. As ashes, his face. Mare, mare, Henket, Henket. Mare, that is only despair, mighty, ceaseless, quenchless, all-consuming sorrow. Grief. Henket. That is only